All right, so let's begin. Palm Sunny. This is is it Henderson? Celtic starts with a C. Henderson, I think. I'll figure it out.
April 11th, 1965. It's a
The audio
beautiful
okay?
sunny afternoon across northern Indiana, and residents all across the state are beginning to venture outdoors to enjoy the pleasant spring weather after
Look
a
at those
long and brutal
cars,
winter.
man. That's so cool.
None of them could have imagined that in just a few short hours, they would be at the center of one of the worst tornado outbreaks in American history.
Yes, it was an outbreak. Yeah. I never
It's
heard
April
of this
10th,
one.
and meteorologists working at the U.S. Weather Bureau's Severe Local Storms Unit, or SELS, are monitoring a massive wave of low pressure called a trough that is moving in over the central United States, bringing with it a large zone of fast-moving winds in the mid-levels of the atmosphere.
A supercell?
This powerful trough generates an unseasonably strong surface low-pressure system called a mid-latitude cyclone, drawing in not only warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico, but also a layer of warm, dry air aloft, originating from the desert southwest called the Elevated Mixed Layer, or EML. As these air masses begin to migrate to the northeast, the EML begins to overspread an expansive plume of warm, moist air, placing a capping inversion, or lid on the atmosphere. This capping inversion is preventing the warm, moist air near the surface from rising and forming clouds,
Right
allowing
over
the
you?
sun to continue heating up the air near the surface and creating a very unstable atmosphere, with the amount of energy available for thunderstorms rising to over 1,000 joules per kilogram. At the same time, the rapidly strengthening surface low pressure system is drawing in a powerful low-level jet of air rushing north, while the winds just above turn rapidly towards the east and spread apart with height, generating record levels of wind shear measuring over 100 knots in the lowest 6 kilometers of the atmosphere. These meteorological factors are coming together to create a volatile atmosphere that will cause any storms that develop to organize into powerful, long-lived thunderstorms with rapidly rotating updrafts called supercells, capable of producing long-track, violent tornadoes. It's now 12:30 p.m., and the meteorologists at
Middle
the
of the day.
SCLS office in Kansas City, noting that all the key ingredients of a devastating tornado outbreak have fallen into place over the Midwest, issue a severe weather forecast statement for northern Illinois, eastern Iowa, and southern Wisconsin, noting the possibility of supercell.
Yeah, I just wonder like how different their like radars and trackers are compared to what we have today, you know? I just think it's cool, like how far they've come with identifying and um getting better technology and so forth. I just kind of want to see, like, I want to see the differences side by side, like their radar and like what they're looking at and so forth. I mean, I guess this is part of it, but still, I think it's really really cool.
Thunderstorms capable of producing powerful tornadoes, and only a few minutes later, that terrible possibility would come true. Just before 1 p.m., a region of extremely fast-moving winds aloft within the larger trough called a jet streak
Like this so far
overspreads the
true.
cold front into the open warm sector, and the capping inversion that has been holding down the powder keg of instability below it breaks, and supercell thunderstorms explode ahead of the cold front. The first
Oh,
tornado of the day would reach
cold
the
front?
Earth at 12:55 p.m. Central Standard Time, just northeast of Tipton, Iowa, and track for roughly 32 miles, obliterating numerous farms at violent intensity before
Oh,
lifting near Springbrook, Iowa, taking a man's life with it.
hi
The same
Carolina.
supercell thunderstorm responsible for the violent tornado near Springbrook cycled and produced another family of tornadoes, including a twister that hit Monroe, Wisconsin, damaging numerous structures, including a hotel which had its roof removed, and another near Evansville that tracked for 23 miles
My
before producing
gosh.
a strong tornado near Jefferson, Wisconsin, reaching over 3/4 of a mile wide, leveling a forest, tossing cars off the roads, and destroying numerous buildings. The tornado would track for a total of 14 miles, claiming 3 lives before dissipating near Ashipun. Further to the south, another cluster of supercells
Gosh.
formed over northern Illinois.
Just kept spawning and spawning and spawn. That's insane. I mean, we already have so many tornadoes. I want to know like how many actual tornadoes there were. I'm sure
Spawning
they're going to tell
several
us.
damaging tornadoes, including a strong tornado that struck near Druce Lake and a devastating tornado that formed near the Crystal Lake area, damaging or destroying numerous structures, tossing large vehicles through the air, completely sweeping away several homes and scattering both debris and victims considerable distances away. The
Oh.
tornado claimed the lives of 6 people, leaving behind terrible destruction. However, the nightmare was only just beginning. It's now 4 p.m., and the
Just having what 12:30 to 4, so 3.5 hours of just keeping an eye on the weather. That's terrifying, especially with all the multiple tornadoes. I mean, you could have the one string of tornadoes, and you never know, depending, on, I guess, on the atmosphere and everything, or the weather. I'm not a meteorologist. I don't know the technical terms for these. I apologize, but like you can have another tornado hitting the same area. I know that has happened before, and I just can't imagine when you go through one and you might have a chance of getting another.
conditions in the open warm sector ahead of the cold front are rapidly deteriorating
Yeah,
into one of the
radio,
most
exactly.
volatile atmospheres for tornadoes ever seen over the
Question: When Just curiosity, I could Google this, but does anyone know when do they start making the tornado sirens? When they start making those? Because I know they had like the weather radio and everything. That's just been the main thing since then, and they still recommend the weather radio to this day. But I just kind of wonder, when do they have the tornado alarms, like the tornado sirens? And who gets to choose the sound for those, by the way? Some of those are terrifying. Freaking Siren Head, 1970? So it was after this? Yeah, 65. So they probably started working on it after this, maybe. It used to be air raid sirens until they made it into tornado sirens. Yeah, I guess those are the ones that sound creepy. Very, very creepy. So, oof.
Midwest, and at 4:20 p.m., the SCLS
Imagine being
unit issued
asleep.
another severe weather forecast for a portion of this area over northern Indiana to northwestern Ohio and southern Michigan, expecting strong tornadoes. Only a few minutes later, more supercells exploded along the cold front in northeastern Illinois and quickly drifted to the northeast. One of these storms became dominant, and at 4:45
Just looking at, I mean, these are all individual cells. It's like they're lined up. Just, I don't know. It's weird. It's weird just seeing them like just these little cells all lined up side by side, like attacking the states. I guess I don't know what you would call it, because usually it's like one big blob, and they may have like some strong parts in there, but they're all separate, discrete cells. Siren was invented in the 1800s, but has been used since the early 1900s for disasters and fire calls. Very, very interesting.
p.m. produced its first tornado. The tornado reached the earth as a narrow funnel near Hamlet before causing its first major damage near Coons Lake, damaging or destroying hundreds of structures, and continued to gradually widen. It then passed near the outskirts of the town of La Paz, where several photographs were taken of the tornado by the Indiana State Police, showing
Just real quick, and Ryan has a good point. The vehicles that were in more complete condition after the storm compared to today's cars. Yeah, that one car that we saw, I mean, it's mostly solid. It wasn't even bent. It's crazy.
the tornado as a brilliant white tube moving quickly across the farmland. However, as the La Paz tornado is beginning to weaken, the same parent supercell thunderstorm cycles and produces a second, even more violent and far more infamous tornado 3 miles to its southeast. Twin twisters were now tearing through northern Indiana. At 5:18 p.m., the southern twin rapidly strengthened as it slammed into the town of Wakarusa, Indiana, causing severe damage to many structures and claiming the life of a child before racing off to the northeast. At 5:24 p.m., the La Paz tornado to the north dissipates as the rapidly strengthening tornado just to its south begins to close in on the town of Midway. What followed is one of the most iconic moments in the history of violent tornadoes. At 5:30 p.m., reporter Paul Huffman and his wife Betty are traveling northwest on US Route 33 when they suddenly notice the swirling dark cloud of the approaching twister. As the monster approaches, Paul takes a series of 6 photographs showing the tornado splitting into twin funnels orbiting around each other as the tornado obliterates.
I'm moving out of the way for the photos. Hey, perfect timing. There we go. Can you imagine just going home? Like, hey, honey, we're going to go home before, the storm starts. And then you look at this one right here, crossing the road. I'm glad they stopped and didn't keep going. Sheesh. Those are good photos. Hey, honey, do you hear a train? I'm just glad they stopped. I mean, look at this area here with all the debris. I don't know if that's like one of their pictures or, well, we're about to find out, of course. I just wanted to look at those.
Operates the Midway Trailer Court, claiming the lives of 10 people and injuring countless others.
No.
Past Midway, the tornado raced to the northeast, obliterating the small subdivision of Jefferson Place, killing several more before slamming into the outskirts of the town of Middlebury, tossing cars and destroying numerous homes, before finally dissipating just northwest of the main part of town, claiming the lives of 31 people. Yet, at the same time the Midway tornado is devastating the community of Wakarusa,
I mean, imagine being here, like somewhere in here, and you look this way, you're like, oh, there's a tornado. Wait, oh, there's a tornado over there too. Can you imagine just looking back and forth and having a tornado on either side of you?
60 miles back to the west,
Hi,
another
Duluth.
long-track powerful
So many people
supercell,
already.
trailing just behind the first, strengthens, and at 5:10 p.m. produces the first tornado in a devastating tornado family that will continue for the next 200 miles. The tornado
200?
caused no visible damage for the first 14 miles of its life, before strengthening considerably as it approached the town of South Wanata and was photographed by a nearby local, appearing as a tall cone tornado with a debris cloud at the surface, while destroying several rural homes and barns, several of which were destroyed at near violent intensity. However, the tornado thankfully remained quite narrow and caused minimal damage and no fatalities as it tracked through a mostly rural area, leaving severe damage in its wake. Meanwhile, back to the east, at the same time the Midway tornado is beginning to weaken, its parent supercell once again cycles and produces yet another tornado 5 miles.
I need the parent cell to stop giving birth to tornadoes. How many tornadoes are going to come from this one cell?
To its south at 5:40 p.m. Starting out as a waterspout over the Goshen Pond, the tempest caused no visible damage for the first 8 miles of its track before rapidly intensifying as the storm destroyed several farms near Indiana State Road 13. The tornado then struck the community of Rainbow Lake just south of Shipshewana, causing devastating damage as it obliterated 12 homes and swept their foundations clean of debris, killing 17 people. Those who lived to tell their stories described the tornado as a cage of serpents writhing around a central point that evolved into a large beast with tentacle-like appendages reaching out horizontally, the unmistakable sign of a multiple vortex of serpents writhing.
That's, first of all, number one, insane footage that you have, and it's very clear that we see it. I mean, 1, 2, 3, and just, I know the little tornadoes cycle around to make the big tornado and etc. But it's so clear in between each funnel. That's so eerie, especially seeing all these cars come by. I'm like, you just made it out. You drove fast enough.
Around a central point that evolved into a large beast with tentacle-like appendages reaching out horizontally.
I'm sorry, did it just go whoosh and turn immediately into that funnel? Sorry, I'm really fascinated with these, but just like watch this one. It's just
point that evolved into a large beast with tentacle-like appendages.
I'm sure it's just debris and dirt and stuff,
the unmistakable sign of a multiple vortex tornado. The tornado traveled for another 20 miles before finally dissipating around 6 p.m. However, from here, the outbreak turned it up to 11. Around the same time that the Shipshewana tornado is beginning to dissipate, more supercells erupt ahead of the cold front in west-central Indiana, while at the same time, the storms previously responsible for the outbreak of tornadoes in Illinois begin to make landfall in Michigan, once again producing tornadoes, the most significant of which would strike near Allendale, Michigan, inflicting moderate to severe damage to a few homes before becoming violent near the Comstock Park area, just north of Grand Rapids.
So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back a little bit.
Destroying over 200 homes with catastrophic intensity and claiming the lives of 5 people. Meanwhile, back to the south in Indiana, the supercell responsible for the Shipshewana tornado once again cycles and produces another tornado at 6 p.m., while at the same time, one of the supercells initiating ahead of the cold front further to the south in central Indiana rapidly intensifies and at 6:07 p.m. produces the first in a family of tornadoes that will continue for the next 200.
So this has been going on for 6 hours, is what you're telling me? Or 5.5 hours? Of just different storms and tornadoes?
74 miles. The tornado destroyed several homes at moderate intensity early in its life before inflicting violent damage to some homes near the towns of Cambria, Mulberry, and Moran, causing over 40 injuries before suddenly dissipating and immediately dropping yet another violent tornado just to the south of the town of Middle Fork.
It means it happened in one day. Yep, it happened in one day. You should look at the April 2011 one. I was pretty close to one of those, the Tuscaloosa one. So yeah, and it is a super outbreak. It's just I don't know. It's just crazy to me, like the how long it lasts. It's not just like one little storm. It's just multiple.
Unbelievably, at the exact same moment, the supercell responsible for the Wanata tornado cycles and produces an even more intense tornado at 6:10 p.m., heading straight for the city of Dunlap, Indiana. The tornado started out damaging trees just west of State Road 331, traveling through a mostly rural area, claiming 2 lives as it rapidly intensified into an extremely violent tornado,
Let's cross
closing
that
in on
path
the
again.
same areas impacted by the Midway tornado an hour earlier. Yet, because of the damage caused by the first tornado, very few people received warning of the monster roaring towards them. The tornado then
No.
slammed into
Oh, that would be awful. Imagine. I mean, what if you lived here and you're like, oh, wow, that tornado is gone. I'm safe. And then you have a second tornado heading your way. Good grief.
very few people received warning of the
Awful.
monster roaring towards them. The tornado then slammed into the Sunnyside and Kingston Heights subdivisions, obliterating homes
Yeah,
and
especially
causing
rain rod would be
incredible
awful.
damage to numerous structures, sweeping their foundations clean, granulating the debris and scattering it for long distances, throwing vehicles and mangling them into unrecognizable balls of steel. And in some spots, the winds became so intense that grass was scoured from the ground, leaving behind just bare soil. A photo taken in the damaged path of the Midway tornado shows the menacing Dunlap tornado in the distance. The tornado continued for another 20 miles, damaging additional communities near Hunters Lake and the Indiana Turnpike, lofting more vehicles before finally dissipating just south of the Michigan border, taking 36 lives with it and injuring over 300 more, making it the deadliest tornado of the Palm Sunday
I drank 300? Hi, Dragon Lover. Oh.
outbreak and one of the most violent tornadoes to ever strike the state of Indiana. With tornado reports becoming so numerous, it became impossible for the Weather Bureau office in Indiana to keep up, and the decision was made to take an unprecedented step and place the entire northern half of the state under a blanket tornado warning due to the sheer number of tornadoes ongoing. Back to
I mean, that's actually a pretty good idea. I mean, especially with the technology that they had back in those days, it definitely was not as advanced as ours is today. Just go ahead and blanket, as they said, blanket that whole area. Just get ready. Just be on the lookout. Actually, just get your stuff and stay in a safe area the whole time. Don't leave. Don't leave right now. That's a good idea to do.
the east, the same lead supercell responsible for
If
the
they
La
ever did
Paz,
it
Midway,
nationwide.
and Shipshewana tornadoes produced yet
Sorry, I
another
didn't mean to speak over it.
supercell responsible for the La Paz, Midway, and Shipshewana tornadoes produced yet another and far larger tornado around 6 p.m. near Lake Pleasant. The twister rapidly widened and intensified as it approached the community of Lake Pleasant, slamming into the lakeside community with terrifying power, causing extreme damage to many structures, reducing them to piles of rubble, and completely debarking and denuding trees, snapping the trunks and bending what was left to the ground. As the tornado crossed the border into Michigan, a local sheriff monitoring the situation gained a visual on the approaching monster and tried to use his radio to alert those downstream before his vehicle was thrown and rolled several times by the winds of the tornado, causing severe injuries. The twister continued to grow in both size and
Severe injuries. That's it. He survived that.
use his radio to alert those downstream before his vehicle was thrown and rolled several times by the winds of the tornado, causing severe injuries.
I mean, that frame is holding together very, very well. Of course, no glass left and the hood's gone, but that is one solid piece. Yeah. I know cars back in the day were built different. They were built to last. Um, so it's just, hearing about the past tornadoes that we've watched with people getting caught in it with their vehicles, and they usually just don't survive and the car is completely smashed. It's just, why don't we have cars like this today? And maybe it's more expensive to make. I don't know. But I mean, this is pretty sound right here. Oh yeah, no seat belts? Probably too, yeah. Oh, He got lucky.
The twister
Really, really
continued to
lucky,
grow in both
regardless.
size and strength as it approached Coldwater Lake, expanding to over a mile wide as it exploded several lakeside homes, sweeping their foundations clean, ripping the grass out of its roots, tossing vehicles for hundreds of yards through the air, and scattering both debris and victims into the lake, resulting in 18 deaths. A picture of the tornado was taken near this area, showing the massive tornado looming in the distance as it grew to nearly 2 miles wide and ripped a large steel tank from its anchoring and threw it over half a mile away. At the same moment, 100 miles
2 miles wide? 2 whole miles wide. What is the widest tornado? 2 miles. Oh, that car was a Ford patrol car, decent condition for what happened. As El Reno. 2.6, so it was El Reno. Dang. That's insane.
to the southwest, the
Huge.
tornado that has just formed south of Middle Fork rapidly intensifies and grows to 3/4 of a mile wide prior to impacting the town of Rushville. The tornado obliterated the small community, destroying over 90% of the structures in town before expanding to over 1 mile wide and crashed into the nearby towns of Alto and Kokomo, becoming violent. The tornado devastated the two communities, destroying over 100 homes along its track before growing even stronger as it impacted the community of Greentown, Indiana, and caused incredible damage to numerous structures. The tornado struck with such fury that homes were completely leveled and swept away, trees were completely debarked and denuded, vehicles were thrown for hundreds of yards, and the grass was scoured from the ground. The tornado would claim the lives of 18 people and injured over 600 others in this area before moving on to the east and leaving behind
There's a
The
thing back
cars
here.
then did have seat belts, but only the lap part.
Only the lap part. I mean, still, it's something to kind of keep you in your seat. For sure. Thank you for the videos. This tornado was likely capable of inflicting F5 damage. Just notice that right there. Especially being that
people
wide.
and injured over 600 others in this area before moving on to the east
Ground
and
scarring,
leaving
yeah.
behind peculiar circular scratches in the ground called cycloidal marks before passing through the southern edge of the city of Marion, decimating more structures, with a few being completely swept away and heavily damaging both a hospital and a shopping center. In all, the tornado would cause the deaths of 25 people and injured over 800 more before finally lifting near the small community of Arcana. Just to the south at the same time, the
It's really all. I mean, I can't imagine being at a hospital, like, either, especially like giving birth too. Sheesh, man, that's terrifying. Regardless of what condition you're in, being at a hospital, you can't really go anywhere. I mean, what do? You roll the beds in the hallway, but you don't have enough staff to like really do that really fast, if anything. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. But what if they had to be on the ventilators and all? It's just, oh, those poor hospital workers trying to rush and do that. But I'm assuming that's probably where a lot of the numbers came from, unfortunately.
Rushville tornado is striking the town of Alto. The supercell just to its south produces its first tornado at 6:36 p.m., just southeast of Crawfordsville, claiming its first life as it traveled through the rural farmland before rapidly widening to over 1 mile wide as it approached the northern edge of the town of Lebanon. The mile-wide tornado devastated the small community north of town, obliterating more than 50 homes, lofting vehicles over 100 yards, and leveling a shopping center before racing off to the east, where it struck the town of Sheridan with brutal force, obliterating numerous homes and sweeping their foundations clean with the debris granulated to small shards, and trees were debarked. In total, the tornado would be responsible for the deaths of 28 people and injured over 100 others before finally dissipating just south of Arcadia. Back in Michigan, additional storms produced even more tornadoes, including a violent tornado that struck just north of Lansing, killing one along with two other strong tornadoes that passed the northern outskirts of Kalamazoo, destroying numerous structures and injuring 17, and another that struck Hastings.
I mean, just like what's happening, it seems like an invasion. Like they're very tactical of like where they're going. This is just terrifying.
Injuring an additional 5. However, back to the south, one of the most tragic stories of the entire outbreak was about to take place.
Oh.
As the massive 2-mile-wide monster that struck Coldwater Lake is narrowing in on the community south of Hillsdale, Michigan, the same supercell responsible for the devastating Dunlap tornado looms right behind it. And as the survivors and first responders of the first tornado in Coldwater Lake crawl their way out of the rubble to perform search and rescue, The Dunlap storm suddenly produces another massive violent tornado right on top of them, sweeping away anything that remained as vehicles, first responders, and victims alike were thrown over a quarter-mile away. Twin mile-wide monsters were now
awful.
terrorizing the same communities in southern Michigan. Back to the west, the first of the two massive tornadoes slams into the community of Bobby's Lake, destroying many structures and lofting a freight train into the lake before widening again as it struck the communities of Manitou Beach, obliterating and completely sweeping away several homes and scattering the debris into nearby Devils and Round Lakes. The local church, with dozens of people attending the Palm Sunday services, collapsed in the face of the violent winds, trapping over 50 people for hours and killing 8 of them. 30 minutes after the first, the second massive wedge tornado again tracks over the same areas as the first and impacts the residents around Bobby's Lake and
It wasn't just a portion. That thing is following the track of that first one. So we're not talking about like one little instance. That's bad. Well, obviously it's bad. That's pretty obvious, but that tragic, I guess, is what the more proper word to say. Because like I've seen tornadoes cross the paths, but this one is literally just hugging this line right here.
Manitou Beach a second time, hitting many of the same
We're going
homes
in.
impacted by the first tornado and causing numerous additional fatalities. Tragically, 6 of those fatalities came from just one family who perished after surviving the first tornado when the second
No!
hit their home. Back to the east, the
Oh, that's
first
so
tornado
sad.
continued to smash the rural areas near the town of Onstead and Tipton, followed closely behind by the second. After both tornadoes had passed, 94% of the structures in the town of Tipton were destroyed as the paths of the
94.
two enormous wedge tornadoes became increasingly difficult to tell apart. Further to the northeast, the first twister passed very close to the town of Tecumseh and hit an anemometer on top of a tower at the local airport. Despite only being grazed by the outer edge of the tornado's circulation, the anemometer recorded an unbelievable wind speed of 151 miles per hour as the center of the tornado passed just to its north, a record for the highest wind speed ever measured in a tornado that would stand for the next 26 years. The two tornadoes would continue for another 20 miles, causing additional destruction to the city of Milan before dissipating 30 miles southwest of Detroit. In total, the two massive tornadoes carved a combined path of complete devastation over 90 miles long and at points nearly 4 miles wide, claiming the lives of 44 people and injuring nearly 600 others. Back to the south, the supercell responsible for the tornado that leveled most of Greentown and Rushville cycles and produces a third violent tornado at 7:20 p.m. near the town of Rural, Indiana, causing severe to violent damage as it passed through the towns of Keystone, Lynn Grove, Byrne, Wilshire, and Jonestown, leveling many homes and large structures and leaving behind additional cycloidal marks before abruptly dissipating. Despite the tornado's terrifying power, it thankfully traveled through a relatively rural area over its 50-mile track, resulting in only 4 deaths and 125 injuries.
Still.
From here, the outbreak moved into Ohio, as the same thunderstorm responsible for the previous tornadoes cycled and produced the storm's 4th violent tornado north of the town of Elida, resulting in the deaths of 13 people and injuring 103 others before dissipating southeast of Findlay. At the same exact time, another supercell formed 50 miles to its north, approaching the city of Toledo, Ohio, and produced one of the most intense and devastating tornadoes of the entire outbreak. The twister reached the earth at 7:30 p.m., decimating numerous homes in the Toledo suburbs to an incredible degree, with many of them being completely destroyed with the debris swept clean off their foundations. Vehicles were once again lofted and thrown great distances through the air, including a bus that was flipped and crushed, resulting in the deaths of 5 people on Interstate 75. An alleged photograph of the event surfaced showing the tornado as a haunting pair of glowing funnels displaying some sort of strange electrical phenomena as the twister terrorized the Toledo suburbs. In all, the tornado would result in the deaths of 18 people and injured over 200 others before disappearing into the darkness over Lake Erie. After the Toledo tornado, several other significant tornadoes would touch down across Ohio, including a violent tornado that struck near the town of Fort Loramie, killing 3, and a long-track tornado that struck the town of Rockaway, killing 4 more, before the same supercell thunderstorm responsible for the 4 previous violent tornadoes across central Indiana approaches the outskirts of Cleveland, Ohio, and at 11:08 p.m. produces another monster twister masked by the darkness of night. The
Oh.
tornado touched down just southwest of Pittsfield and struck the town only minutes later, causing incredible destruction, with dozens of homes literally vanishing into the darkness, with no trace of them ever found. Nearly the entire town was obliterated, with almost nothing left remaining. The tornado destroyed several additional communities at varying strength before reaching northern Strongsville, where it once again completely leveled many homes, with the debris swept away, leaving nothing left of the structures, before dissipating just northeast of town, taking 18 lives with it and injuring 200 others. As the night drew on, a few other weaker tornadoes would strike rural communities across Ohio, but thankfully for the survivors, the outbreak was finally coming to an end. By the time the sun had risen on April 12th, 266 people had been killed, with more than 3,000 sustaining life-altering injuries from an onslaught of at least 55 tornadoes stretching across the Midwest,
My
in what
gosh.
would come to be the second most violent tornado outbreak.
I'm looking at that one crossed that one. That one crossed. And they're. I mean, all these are crossed at some point. This one is just a continuation. Looks like it lifted, went down, lifted, went down, lifted, went down. 55 tornadoes? Over what? 166 dead? That like what do you do? What do you do when your home gets hit by the first tornado and you're fine, but everything's gone basically? You can't really stay down in the debris because it could, something could fall on you, etc. I don't know. And then you have to go through another one? Another one. Like, I didn't mean to do that as a joke, obviously. But like a second tornado.
In U.S. history, and the fourth deadliest day for tornadoes ever recorded in the United States. The Palm Sunday tornado outbreak would go down as the single most destructive day for tornadoes in American history, leaving behind apocalyptic levels of death and destruction, matched only by the 1925 tri-state tornado and the 1974 and 2011 super outbreaks. Tragically, the Palm Sunday tornado struck on a religious holiday weekend on the first warm day of the year, luring many outside and away from both shelter and a way of receiving warnings, greatly magnifying the terribly high death toll and forcing the National Weather Service to make sweeping changes in the way they warn the public about tornadoes. Yet, despite the unimaginable levels of devastation, one man took a particular interest in the damage left behind by the historic tornado outbreak. A 44-year-old Dr. Tetsuya Fujita seized the opportunity to document such a historic event in unprecedented detail, chartering a series of flights to survey the damage from the air and reconstruct the entire outbreak, using his meticulous documentation of the damage to put forward new theories on the internal structure of tornadoes, and developed a new way of categorizing a tornado's strength based on the damage they leave behind, called the F scale, ensuring that those who
That's where it came from. So, dude, this guy just stood up and said, I'm going to do all of this. And just, that's a lot of work. A lot of science, a lot of work, a lot of time. That's insane.
based on the damage they leave behind, called the F scale, ensuring that those who lost their lives in the devastating Palm Sunday tornado
And money.
outbreak were not lost in vain.
It's very, like, respectful, doing that in their honor. You know, I mean, that's really, really cool that he was doing this. Oh, because can you imagine? What if he didn't? What if he wasn't here and we don't have the F scale? What if, like, or any studies of these tornadoes and their paths and everything? Like, would someone else have stood up and done that? I don't know. Like, where would we be at that point? So that's why it's called the F scale. Okay, I didn't know that actually.
You're
Santa's
getting
coming!
cold. Honey buns, I'm gonna put out something different for Santa this year.
Okay, honey.
Ho ho holy night! I'm so full of cookies and they keep slowing me down.
Candy.
Ho ho, what is this? Oh, they left me a note. Use code SPIT at checkout to save 10% on your next purchase. Gamersoft's sugar-free premium energy cans gives you a legendary energy and focus packed with high-quality ingredients, fuels your grind with clean energy and next-level performance. Ah, I feel more energized than ever.
Are you gonna eat those?
Santa! Stay energized for the Christmas holidays, and don't forget to use code SPIT at checkout. Save that 10%. I better not see you on the naughty list.